What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the For the Crew podcast, sponsored by ClearPoint Audio. My name is Brian. I'm your host tonight. I am joined by my co-host, Matt. We have a special guest with us tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit of Crew soccer, and we're going to be talking to a really cool author of a great book that's coming out. But first and foremost, before we jump into that, Matt, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I had a bit of a issue with my mic. I don't know if you saw, but the last episode I did by myself, so that was fun.
No,
Um,
I actually did not say that. Is that bad that I didn't even know? Didn't even
yeah,
know
it was the first ever time I've done like a monologue, so it was different,
that.
but it was cool.
And also, we just want to clarify. We know we had some audio issues with the episode before that too. It has absolutely nothing to do with our awesome gear from ClearPoint. It has everything to do with using Discord. So just want to throw that out there because I think we had some audio issues last time.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out what works best for us and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I'm doing good too. I'm tired of this stupid Ohio weather that goes from being 80 degrees one day to thunderstorming and then it's like 40 degrees like twice and it's gonna do it again. Dude, I feel like it's the worst transitional weather that I think that I've like experienced since living here, not which I've lived here my entire life, but it's been awful. So yeah. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and jump in. Tonight's guest, it's Carlos Mojica. Carlos, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're here to talk to us about tonight?
Sure. So I'm Carlos Mojica. I work in communications. My background is in soccer, and I am the author of Goal, a book that's actually coming out today. Today's release day. If you're
Very
listening
cool.
to this March 24th, if it's another date, then it's already out. So
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? How did you get into soccer? Was it just a part of your life all the time growing up? And then how did you find your way to the Crew specifically?
So I grew up in El Salvador. I moved to the U.S. when I was 11. And growing up in El Salvador, like the majority of other countries, soccer is the predominant sport. And so you just grew up playing it. Whether you're good or not, it's irrelevant. It's just what you do. It's part of the culture. It's much like here at barbecues, you're tossing around a football. Over there, you're kicking a soccer ball. And so I first got into soccer when I was probably around 6 or 7. Is that right? That sounds right. Uh, I was aware of the World Cup in 1994 that it was happening. I just didn't watch it. I wasn't quite into soccer yet. Uh, but I did collect the Panini album. If you guys know what that is, the stamp album that they're super popular in America. Essentially, what they are is you can collect stickers and you fill up all the teams that are in the World Cup. So
Oh, cool.
I collected it
Yeah.
for that. Yeah, it's I think they actually sell them in the US now. But so I did that, and then after that World Cup, I got a little bit curious and started playing it at school. And then this Brazilian guy named Ronaldo started playing, and he just captured my imagination. So I got
Yeah.
curious about the game. I started watching it, and then, like I mentioned, I moved to the U.S. In 1998, and I kind of went from playing soccer every day after school, which is what was happening right before I moved. Essentially, my school routine was I would go home from school, eat lunch, watch TV, um, and then watch the Champions League is essentially what I was watching. Then I would go out and play in the street with my friends until it got dark. So then I moved to Ohio. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, Medina, which is a very rural area. At least it was
Yeah.
at the time. It's developed since, and you didn't see people playing soccer anymore, not like before. They weren't playing after school. Occasionally, you would play it in phys ed. I ended up joining like a youth team. Now, in 1999, the FIFA Women's World Cup occurred, and that really, I had the chance to watch that. I think the whole nation watched that and was inspired by it, watching
Yeah.
the US Women's National Team win. And from that, I played soccer in high school. Eventually, once I got to college, I was pursuing a degree in international relations. Fast forward to grad school, I started dabbling with writing as a beat writer for a magazine called Centro Deportivo. It was
hmm
the bilingual magazine, and so I would cover the men's national team and the Columbus Crew. And as I was covering it, I got to go to International Champions Cup, men's national team games, MLS Cup in 2015. But about 2 years into it, in 2015, in fact, I started wanting to be more on the club side of things because I felt like I wanted to contribute to something, be part of a club, be part of a team. And
Mhm.
I ended up reaching out to AFC Cleveland. AFC Cleveland's a team in the NPSL. Their website was existed and they didn't have recaps, and so I reached out to them and so I asked how I could help. I ended up working there for 2 seasons. In 2016 we actually won the 2016 NPSL championship, which was really cool. That year I also began working for the league for the NPSL as a communications coordinator, and at the end of that season I applied for a position with the crew. By then, I had gained some experience. We had hosted the final of the tournament. I had continued to work as a reporter. I had covered the final of Copa America Centenario. I had attended Gold Cup, and by then I had gained enough expertise that I was able to get a position of communications manager with the crew.
That's an
Very
incredible
cool.
journey. So real quick, and also Matt, sorry, I don't know if it
No, you're good.
I don't know if it matters or not. My volume was not turned up on the channel on
You're
my
good. You're good.
thing. I just didn't know if it's gonna like blow it out on playback.
Nope,
Um,
you're fine.
but Carlos, I wanted to ask you real quick, what was that like from a cultural standpoint? That shock of going from El Salvador and moving to a place that's like rural Medina, and especially coming to a country and moving where like again you are correct, like in a lot of Spanish speaking countries, actually in most of them, like soccer is the predominant sport, like American football is here. And so you come to Ohio, you come to rural rural Ohio, kind of out in the sticks, and it's like nobody really does that. So like was that a shock for you, or were you just like were you disappointed by that, or did you find a certain like did you find other outlets for that aside from school, or like how did that go for you?
So yeah, I mean, I was a little disappointed because I went from playing soccer every day to now, okay, when do I play? I can play my backyard by myself, maybe with my sister if she wants to, um, and occasionally at school. But uh, eventually, I ended up joining a youth team in fifth grade, and that was really cool because since not a lot of kids were playing soccer here, they thought I was really good. I wasn't, but, but by comparison, I was for about a year or two, and then people got better. But
I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
ask if like in school were you the kid that like when it was PE time and they're like, all right, we're gonna play soccer today. We're like, dude, Carlos is on my team. Like, did everybody fight over you because they're like, man, he's like he knows what he's doing.
yeah, it was like what's that movie with the kid from the Sandlot? So the green,
The big
Oh, the
green.
big
the
green.
green. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it was
yeah.
like. So,
That's awesome. That's so
That's
cool.
great.
Oh man. Okay, so you start your journey off, like I said, you're working in the NPSL. Moved to sorry, Matt, did you have something you wanted to
Yeah, I had a question about the MPSL. When you got that job, was it kind of just a learn as you go kind of thing, or did you have someone with you, or was it just like day by day, just kind of figure it out as you go?
so, so when I joined AFC Cleveland,
Yeah.
I that was basically, hey, you're in charge of the communications department. We'll say,
Hmm.
and for those who are not familiar with the MPSL, would it be the equivalent of about the third or fourth division
I think that's right.
by the pyramid? And it's semi-pro. A lot of college kids that are trying to stay fit in the summer play there. So the quality of the soccer can be really good, and it is very much a labor of love. People are doing this because they love the sport.
Hmm.
They're not getting paid; they're doing it for the love of the game. But so I learned a little bit. I wouldn't say just on the fly. Gary Moody, who's the communications director for the NPSL, he would check in on me. He had previously worked for FC Cleveland, and he gave me some guidance.
Awesome.
And so when I got the position with the NPSL as a coordinator, I was very much under his tutelage, and he was very, very influential in getting me to learn the ins and outs of what's the basics of a communications department and soccer communications department,
Hmm.
uh, writing press releases and things like that.
Very cool.
very cool. So again, you move on from NPSL, you find your way into working with the crew, and then you ended up it kind of were that bilingual bridge, right? You became like the primary interpreter and translator for the Spanish speaking players, correct?
Yes. So That wasn't the only thing I did, but that was on match days when they were doing the interviews, I was the person that was standing right beside them, translating, whether it was live or after the fact.
Is that a pretty cool ordeal to be a fan, be like a Nordecke kind of person, work for the front office, and then you're down like working with the players? Or were you a little bit were you a little bit like, I don't know, not, I wouldn't say shell shocked, but like, was it like a weird moment to be like, these are like really good professional players, and like, even though this is the job that I'm doing and just like translating for them, like it's still pretty cool. Like, was that intimidating at all?
So no, only because since I had been working as a reporter since 2013, I had gotten to cover and interview different players, European players, MLS players, and so that kind of gets you over being odd. I mean, the first time, sure, you're like, oh man, I remember watching these guys on TV.
Yeah.
Uh, but then you remember you're there to do a job and you're trying to be professional. And so, since I had the
Mhm.
experience of doing that at different levels, including with some of the crew guys, because I was still covering the crew, even as I was working for the NPSL and AFC Cleveland, um, it became okay, you're here to do a job. You build a rapport with them because I was attending the training sessions regularly. I was traveling with the team for away matches for preseason. I was gone for weeks at a time with them, and when you're able to establish those relationships, it's you're able to keep it at a professional level. You get to know the guys a little bit better. But listen, like if you love soccer, you're happy to be working in soccer, and you're really happy to be working for a club. That I don't think that goes away when you truly love the sport. It's just a matter of kind of taking that step back and being like, okay, this is really cool, but I'm still being paid to do a job, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
show up and be professional.
Yeah.
Were there any like specific moments doing that stick out to you?
As far as translating, or
Yeah, in terms of translating.
it was always really cool when we would get a new player that did not know any English or very little English,
Hmm.
and then you could see them gradually sort of need me less and less. It sounds silly because in that sense it renders me useless as a translator, right? But it actually made me happy because it meant that they had become so comfortable with the language that they had learned, and you could see that growth. So the first time that some of the players did their first interviews in English was always really cool. I remember Milton Valenzuela and Artur doing their interviews uh, in English. And for Artur, he speaks Portuguese because he's Brazilian. I speak Portuguese as well, and so it really challenged. That one was really challenging at times because um, my Portuguese is not as good as my Spanish. But when they did their first interviews in English, that was a really special moment for me as someone that had seen the work that they had put in to learn the
Yeah.
language.
Yeah, I also have to admit, like, that's pretty cool that you know multiple languages. I like aspire to be able to speak English half of the time very well, but like to be able to speak like multiple languages, I and that is like, I want to just say, like, that is actually a really cool thing, and I think that, I mean, there are a lot of people in the United States that speak multiple languages, but I am always very impressed by people who come from outside of the United States, especially in soccer. Man, I mean, you have people from all over the globe, and you'll get guys from coming to clubs from different countries, and it's like they speak like three or four languages, and so like it's just always impressive, and like even just to learn, on the fly for their stay at a club is super impressive, and just something that like I have a lot of respect for. Um, so just to kind of continue on a little bit, and then we'll talk about the book here real quick. So you're still on crew staff. You got to be part of the 2020, what I like to call the COVID Cup, which that is what it is. I just give it a quick little nickname. I know that it's not really funny, but like that's what I call it. I was there. I cried a lot that night. It was great. Um, but then you also help kind of transition from historic crew to lower.com. What was that transition like of moving from historic crew stadium to what is now Scotts Miracle-Gro Field, or whatever the heck it is now, lower.com? It's got a bunch of different names, but what was that transition like for you guys?
So moving from at the time my first stadium, now historic Crew Stadium, to at the time new Crew Stadium, and now what is it?
Scott's
Scotts
Miracle.
Miracle-Gro Field.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, so it was a busy year, right? We're coming off winning a championship. We still had some of the COVID restrictions occurring, which meant we had to adapt in many ways. They were easing up a little bit, uh, but it was a transition, and it was special. I mean, Historic Crew Stadium was the first soccer-specific stadium in the United States, and I think it holds a special heart, a special excuse me, it holds a special place in the hearts of not just Columbus Crew fans, but American soccer fans. It's a home of Dos a Cero. We
Mm-hmm.
like to say we're the spiritual home of soccer in the U.S. And so to I don't want to say close it because the stadium still continues to be used now by Crew Two and by UFL, what have you. But
Yeah.
to be able to make that transition was really cool. And before we actually even moved to the new Crew Stadium to Scotts Miracle-Gro Field, we actually opened the Ohio Health Performance Center. So we were juggling that too. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel really lucky that I got to be a part of two milestones in the well, multiple milestones in the
Yeah.
history of the Crew: the championship in 2020, the new training facility, and obviously the new stadium. It was special. We got to do a lot of really fun stuff, both in terms of the media and in terms of just seeing it develop, getting to see what the new press box was going to be like. It was really cool. I mean, it's a new stadium. It's bigger. It's better in terms of what it offers from a technological standpoint, and it's downtown. And maybe one of the coolest things was the addition of that yellow smokestack, which was
Yeah,
just a stroke of
Yeah.
brilliance. And
yeah,
We
I
use that
don't want
in
to
our logo now.
yeah,
I don't want to be wrong, but I know Molly Zalewski played a pretty big role in that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's it's really cool because now when you look at downtown, the Crew is part of the
yeah,
skyscape.
yeah. That's incredible. I want to switch real quick because I am definitely off of my notes that I had written down. So ask you one thing about one thing specifically. So you wrote a famous piece called "The Maestro's 60-Second Cavatina." That's about Federico's 60-second assist as a crew player. When you write about a player that has his like technical intelligence, how do you ensure that the tactical nuance of things that the media uses, um, like how do you ensure that that isn't lost for the media while also making it easier for people like myself to be able to understand?
So I think your question's threefold instead of twofold, and I say that because there's different types of writing that you do. One of my jobs notes with the Crew is putting together the match notes, which is a packet that the media gets that has all types of different tidbits that they
Mhm.
can use ahead of the match, during the match, after the match. This particular piece was meant to be on the website and for the general public, and so it was written less with the media in mind and more so with the general public in mind. To
Mm-hmm.
your point, that how do you manage to keep the tactical nuisances of a player like Federico in there? It's difficult because I don't know you can ever truly do him justice. And so this was my
Mm-hmm.
attempt at what I felt was a very special moment in his career, in the history of the Crew. I have a good relationship with Federico, and so I hold him in high regard as a person. And I actually wrote that article both in Spanish and English because I wanted, he can
Very cool.
read English, but
Yeah,
I know he prefers to read it in Spanish. And so I wrote that with him in mind. And we use the term el maestro all the time. And so I said, okay, so if he's a maestro, let's go ahead and translate that feel because a lot of times you can't translate all of the tactical abilities, but you can translate or at least try to translate the way that it makes you feel, the way that what it captures.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I
Sweet.
love Federico. I'm glad he's still here too, being part of
Yeah.
crew. I think that everybody is very very glad to see that.
Well,
But, sorry, go ahead,
well,
Matt.
I got something. Oh, so speaking of Higuain, he's the coach of Crew Two. Did you worked with Crew Two as well, right?
Yeah, so I helped launch the club, and which was really cool. I'm glad that I was a part to I was able to be a part of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
After I left in 2022, I came back to do PA announcements for the playoff run for the
Awesome.
MLS Next Pro Cup. which Crew 2 won, the Cappies
Mm-hmm.
won. And then I came back again in 2023, the whole season in 2024. I didn't do it last year, mostly because I was working on my book. But yeah, I had the chance to be a part of the two finals, and so that was really cool.
What was your role in starting up the team?
So the team was going to be started. With me, it was more of launching the brand. Well, I didn't develop the assets. It was getting the communications out there, putting together the media plans, communicating with the media, putting together the events where
Mm-hmm.
it was unveiled, putting together the first press conference, the announcements of the players. One of the things that we did and was we really wanted to make sure that there was a connection between the players and the community. And so if you look, I don't know if they're still online or not, but if you look at the player announcements for the initial set of Crew 2 players, they were all done at locations throughout Columbus, like everyday locations. We did them at parks, and that was done on purpose. We wanted them to really be ingrained into the community. I think we used the
That's cool.
short north for Abdi, for example. For Marco Micaletto, we went to Guriel Park, and so the idea there was to really make them feel part of the community. And obviously, the supporters, the Nordecke, they did a great job with just really embracing them and putting together what I think is the best supporters section in MLS Next Pro.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I actually went to a Crew 2 game for my bachelor party, and it
Nice.
was the most fun I've had at a game in a while. Like it wasn't like uh overly serious chants and stuff, but it was just fun. And I kind of I really enjoy that atmosphere was lighthearted but still in support of the team. And so that's cool. Um yeah, Brian, you got something here?
Uh, I think I'm
I
good, but we can,
Okay. Well, I mean, honestly, we can just go into the book. I want to hear more about the book from you.
yeah. So
Um
let's talk about that. Um, so since you left the Crew, you've been collaborating with CONCACAF and MLS on massive international projects and events. So how's working at that macro level change how you view the Columbus soccer scene?
So and just to be clear, I do freelance for them. Essentially, I act as
mhm.
press officer for tournaments from time to time, occasionally as a media officer. It's cool because it lets you see another layer of the onion, right? Uh, I I like to say that I've been lucky enough to have different vantage points of the sport, from being a kid playing soccer, being a supporter sitting in the Nordecke, being a reporter doing PA, working for the club, working for clubs at the grassroots level, and so this lets me do things that are at the league level. When in the case of Leagues Cup, for example, or I was a venue press officer for the All Star Game in 2025, and so that was really special because, excuse me, in 2024, and so that was really special because I was here at home, here in Columbus. And then when you get to work CONCACAF, I mean that's a premier tournament in the region. So like that's the highest you can get in the continent. It's the highest competition. To be able to work with folks from different countries, from different leagues, from different federations, it's really cool. It almost feels like you have this group of special ops that gets dropped in a location in the stadium, and you're given the task of executing this one match or set of matches, what have you.
That's cool. So when you think about it, a lot of communication professionals kind of stay behind the scene for the good majority of their careers, if you want to put it like that. So let's start talk about the book. What was that specific moment where you said, "Hey, I have all these stories about all these prolific players from all across the globe, all throughout soccer history. I need to put them into a book that kids can read." Like, what was that specific moment where you said, "Hey, that's something that, like, that's a venture I want to do," because that's a big undertaking too. Some people might think, especially if you're making a book for kids, it may not take that much effort. It's just as difficult as writing any other book. So what
Mhm.
was that like for you, where you decided that, hey, like, here's all these great stories, and I just want to put a book together and let kids read about them? inspire them.
So writing was my first love. When I first went to college, I initially was an English major because I wanted to be a writer. And then after about 2, 3 semesters, I decided that, hey, maybe I don't need to have an English degree to be a writer. I was a reporter. I was writing stories. And so when you think of soccer, you think about the joy that it brings people. And when you think of joy, you think of children. With the World Cup happening this year, it just seemed like a natural connection. And the Quarto group, they gave me the opportunity to write this book, and so it was a challenge because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
used to writing for children, and
Hmm.
so big shout out to my editor Kayla, who helped me find my kid voice, making it engaging because you need to make it digestible for children. You need to have it be so that they can retain information. So give them information that's not boring and have them want to come back for more. And the book itself, which you can see here, is it's fairly thick. It's not
Wow,
it's
yeah.
not
Yeah.
necessarily it's not there's a lot in. There's 160 pages, um, but the research took a long time, and then whittling it down because there's so much that could be. I mean, you could write a book that's that size just about Messi, for example. You could write that about Mia Hamm, and in fact, that has been done. So
Mm-hmm.
to have to whittle it down to
Yeah.
information that's just the core but still captures the essence of the player, that was probably the biggest challenge. So I don't know if I answered your question, if I diverted too much, but
No, absolutely. And it's one of those things too that we talked about before we started recording tonight. Is I was reading through like the PDF copy that Matt had for me, um, and it was interesting because again, you're like trying to whittle down these stories, and I'm like reading through, and I was like, okay, yeah, like I know that makes sense, but there's a lot of interesting players in there that like I've never even heard of, but then to read their stories, it's like, wow, dude, like how have I not heard about that? And so I think it's cool to really to really deep dive into that, and it shows how much time and effort and passion that you put into it to pull these specific stories that even adults like myself are like, I've never heard of this player, but like that is an incredible achievement. Like what they did for the game was amazing. And so yeah, I can't begin to imagine the amount of effort that goes into something like that. So but I want to ask too, because I think like the primary target age range for kids seems to be maybe like 7 to 9, something like that. So, is there something special about that age where a kid goes from playing soccer to becoming a soccer fan that kind of motivated you for that too, or?
so in many ways I wrote this for the younger version of myself, and that's about the age that I got into soccer, and
Mm,
so that's where that comes in. I moved to the US when I was 11 and I didn't speak English. And some of the books that I would try to read were books that were about soccer. And I remember what they looked like. A lot of them were very old because at the time, there was limited exposure to soccer.
mhm.
It was just words. And so when I wrote this book, I took a big inspiration from the Guinness Book of World Records. I don't know if you remember, when you guys were in school,
Mm-hmm.
you went to the library, if that's something you would look at, some of the records, like the guy with the longest fingernails, or
It's creepy, man.
what have you. Yeah, yeah. But people would see that, would look at it together. You would show it to your friends. You would carry it around. And so with this book, I wanted to have that vibe. So throughout the book, throughout the profiles, and I covered the history of the book, the rules of the game, the positions before I get into the profiles. But throughout the whole book, there's bits of trivia, there's quizzes that are in there to try to capture that feeling of, oh, this is really cool. I know about this fact. And this is a book that it's a book that I think, if you have children that maybe are not English speakers, or maybe not children, it could
Mm-hmm.
even be teens, they come here and this is at a reading level that they can follow, and maybe it'll
Yeah.
make them interested because I really like soccer. So
Well, and
Uh. Yeah.
sorry, I was going to say too. I think that's one of the things that I also love about reading through the book is it's not just there's lots of player stories in it, but also there's a little bit about, like you said, like the positional stuff and some of the other like
Mm-hmm.
facts and that. So it's cool to like, even for kids that might not really understand the game a whole lot, may just know the players and stuff. Like it's a very cool thing to kind of understand some of that stuff and be able to see on paper that they can understand, or somebody who's like an adult who's clueless like me, and a lot of that stuff to be able to be able to understand that stuff. And it's incredible. Sorry, Matt, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna ask. Like, there's a ton of players in there that, like you said, you can write a whole book about, right? Was there any player specifically for you that it was hard to like condense it down into a small little section?
Yes, I mean there were quite a few like that. I mean, when you talk about the Maradonas, the Pelés, the
Mm-hmm.
Mia Hams, the Messis, Ronaldos of the world, it was very difficult because there's so much that you there's so much you can say that you don't want to leave anything out, and you
Yeah.
want to do right by them. The guys behind me, two of my favorite players, so got Maldini and then Totti. So
Yep.
those were two that I also wanted to make sure that I got right, just because they were special to me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was challenging. I hope I did them justice. I'd like to think I did.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, like, I was it an intentional choice to make sure you added in American players, or were you like, these are just as important as the big name players?
So what I like to tell people is that this is not a definitive list of the greatest players of all time, because that
Mm-hmm.
list varies. Your list will be different from mine. It'll be different from yours, Brian. And what I wanted to do was give kids a sample of the players that have made an impact in history and that have provided us with moments of magic. They have captured the fans' imagination throughout the years. And so
Yeah.
these are players that I think did that. We have both men and women in there.
Yep.
And, there might be some names that you disagree with being on there. There might be some names that you wish were on there. And I think that then leads to some interesting conversations. And that's part of the fun. I mean, I remember being a kid and telling my dad how much I love Maldini and how great he was. And he would come back to me and say, oh, he's fine, but I really like Franco Varesi. And then we would start having that dialogue. And so if if I can start, if kids can have those dialogues with their parents, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Conversely, I also think you could give this book to a kid that knows nothing about soccer, and the goal is that by the end of the book, he or she will have fallen in love with the sport.
Yeah, and that's again, that's hitting back on. It goes beyond just the player stories, and I think that for somebody who is like, I don't really have any interest, I'll pick this up though because maybe I'm interested in sports, and they just fall in love with the game. And I agree with you too. Like it is tough to. I mean, it is not a definitive list of people, but there's so many more out there, and that's a good thing for people like you, because then you could just write volume 2 of the book in a couple more years if you feel like doing that. So
I haven't gone through the whole book. I went through to try to see what the table of contents were, and went through a couple players. Are there Columbus Crew players in the book?
And you were going to ask me that. There are not Columbus Crew players in the book, but to your point about making a sequel, we'd like to make one that's maybe we'd like to write another book that's maybe MLS based or
That'd be cool.
CONCACAF based. Yeah.
that's fair enough.
Sweet.
Cool. So today's launch day for your book. Where can people in the Columbus area find it? Where can you find it at? Can you order it online? Can you pick up physical copies places? What does that look like?
So the book should be available anywhere that they sell books, pretty much. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, some of the local independent stores. You can also order online. And if you go to the website called geni.us/Go Awesome Soccer, it actually helps the publisher. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. But yeah, it's available pretty much everywhere. You can get the hard book version, which I think looks really nice.
Yeah, that's
Or you can get the digital version. So
awesome. Do you have like any local signings for your book or anything like that planned or anything?
we're working on some of that right now. Nothing's definitive, so I don't want to put it out there and then jinx it. So
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good.
Right.
Cool.
Not a problem.
Yeah. So I have a question for you that's nothing to do with the book. As a Columbus Crew fan, right? We've won three titles, MLS Cups. We've won an Open Cup. We've won some Supporter Shields. As a fan, what was your favorite year as a Columbus Crew fan and why?
You also forgot the Carolina Challenge Cup, Matt.
Oh, sorry, and the Carolina Challenge Cup.
I actually have that jersey from one of the years we won somewhere. um, so as a fan, and I like to think of myself as being a fan until I start working in soccer. Not because I'm not a fan of the sport, but because then
Yeah.
you get into nitty gritty of things.
Mhm.
2014 was very cool because it was Berhalter's year. Now, if you're asking me what my favorite moment was working for the club, um, it's got to be 2020 MLS Cup. It
Yep.
was a very, very special moment. It felt like a breath of relief after everything that had been happening, and the year that it was, just with the COVID and everything.
Mhm.
It was very special for me. And if you look at the photos, I'm actually on the platform in the back. Everyone's looking forward and yelling. I'm the guy that's like staring off into space because I was just paying attention to the confetti coming down because I was trying so hard to take everything in because when you work in sports, everything
Yeah.
moves so fast that you don't always get the chance to take it in. And so
That's
that was
fair.
one moment where I really tried to be present. So I'm watching the confetti fall down and just hoping that I can hold on to that moment because it may never happen again.
Yeah.
It did a
That's
few years
cool.
later, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna get that photo as soon as we get off here. Be like, hey man, that's Carlos right there, because I know a photo of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually follow up on that since you brought that up. You said you felt like a sense of relief and a sense of just this overwhelming sense of like almost comfort winning 2020 MLS Cup after everything that had happened. Was that kind of the vibe in the front office at that time with everything that had gone on since essentially 2015, and then saving the team, getting to that point, um, and getting through COVID and all that? Like, was that a general feeling throughout the entire front office at the time?
so I don't want to speak for other folks, but what I can say is that that was a period of time when we were certainly very busy, especially 2019. Even we were already like in 2020, we were already talking about the new stadium and all of that,
Mhm.
and so we've been very busy. COVID was very difficult to navigate at times. So I was part of the team that went into the bubble, delegation that went into the bubble in Orlando, and so you're away from your family. You can only talk to them via, uh, I would say Skype, but that's when Zoom got big, right?
Mhm.
and so and so by the end of that, it just felt like we were running this marathon, and it's like when you finally cross the finish line and you get the gold medal. So
Yeah,
that's what made it
Cool.
special, I think, for me and probably for some other folks.
that's cool.
Nice.
Couple last minute. Matt, did you have something? We only have about 15 minutes left here.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's a question that I didn't even have prepared. It just came. I just started thinking about it while we're having this conversation. But like, you started off as a fan. You became a part of the organization, and you've kind of made soccer a job. But you've seen MLS for a long time now, right? How from from a perspective of someone who's inside or who has been inside, how much has the league changed in the years that you've been a part of it?
Listen, it's continued to grow. I think you see that the quality on the field continues to get better every
Mm-hmm.
year. And not just the quality of the field, or excuse me, not just the quality of the players on the field, but the stadiums, the
Yep.
presentation. So it's continued to evolve. And to take it a step further, I mean, I remember we talked about me coming to the US in the 90s and how
Mm-hmm.
soccer was a scarcity. And now you look around and soccer is just everywhere. And I think MLS is a big part of that in terms of upping the product that it presents and that fans are able to go to. And I don't like using the term product, but in some way you do look at it like that because people are paying to go to these matches, and so they want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Matt, you got anything else, man?
I think I've got everything that I wanted to say.
Okay. One last quick question. Who is your favorite Columbus Crew player of all time?
Crew cat.
Crew
Crew Cat,
cat.
dude. Crew Cat coming back from the dead, man. By far,
Yeah.
I think that's like a secret everybody's.
Yeah, that's funny.
Awesome, man. Well, you can pick up his brand new book, Goal: Awesome Soccer Stories and Fun Facts for Kids. Carlos, thank you so much for being on the For the Crew podcast tonight, man. We appreciate you coming on, and be sure to check out. You can get his book anywhere. Anywhere you can buy books online and store, anything like that. So, you got anything else, Carlos, that you wanna throw out there to the world about your book or anything that's upcoming for you, man?
No, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at cd.mojica, as well as on Threads. I am still on X, formerly Twitter, at cd_mojica. If you do buy the book, take a photo of it. Let me know what you think. Tag me. I'm curious to know what people think, and I really hope you enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you coming on today. That's gonna wrap it up for us. So thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Go buy yourself a copy. Goal: Awesome Soccer Stories and Fun Facts for Kids. Out today.
Peace.
Peace.
For the Crew podcast.